All right.
Well, of course, it would be the one book that I don't have up here at the office, which is the paperback for the Amityville book that he wrote.
I'm recording.
Okay. I have all the other ones with me, but I, for some reason, don't have that one in the box.
Okay, but here's the thing, and I love the topic that you're bringing up, because I think when it comes to Amityville, there's many different layers to Amityville, right? So I've been saying for how long that, nobody owns Amityville. So, my father researches the case. He writes the books, right? So we've got Murder in Amityville. Murder in Amityville spawns a film, right? Books get optioned for films, right? So we've got Amityville 2, The Possession. So that bit has to do with my father and working with Ethel Johnson Mayers, who was a very well-noted psychic back then. No gimmicks, nothing. She was really who she was. He has the theory of possession. That's on his end. That's his research. That being said, fast forward to today, as far as where I'm concerned, I've had my little roles in Amityville for different reasons and with different people, and most of which it has nothing to do with the paranormal. It has to do with the crime scene itself, because I'm very interested in forensics and crime. So that's all, I think, validated and respectful in my view. I'm not looking to say, we own Amityville. So you're bringing up what? Like, what is it?
Well, I mean, obviously, Ed and Lorraine Warren were, we'll say, very media heavy during that. And it was very obvious that it was kind of it made national news. This was a huge thing. So what better way to get your name out there than to kind of push your way into a national groundbreaking case? I've kind of felt, I've been to the Amityville house. I was one of the people back in 2000 who was lucky enough to actually get inside of it. And that was only because my girlfriend at the time, her brother-in-law, was one of the contractors that was paid to change the outside windows so that it would be less recognizable from the street. So I spent a good 2 weeks in that house for several hours a day.
Wow.
Not at any point did I ever feel creeped out. I was overwhelmed because I'm like, you hear about this house and everybody wants a chance to get in there. And it was my first trip to New York, and it was straight to Long Island. And I remember passing the sign when it said Amityville 14 miles. I was like, we're going.
Demons.
We're going. Did weird stuff happen there? Yes. There was absolutely, based in the facts that we know, there was brutal murders there. There was no real motive behind it. There's been speculation. Your dad was present at the trial.
Yeah.
So yeah. He documented very well and transcribed how the testimony for DeFeo went, what his defense was, the claims that he did and didn't make. And of course, you're familiar with Chris Lutz, I'm sure. I'm sure he's reached out to you at some point.
Yes.
I've talked to him extensively about the things that did and didn't happen to his family there, because there are a lot of things that Hollywood put into these movies because nobody wants to watch it, the true story, because it would be boring. I think seeing an article the other day about Lorraine Warren based on this new movie that they have coming out based on another case that they did. The movie's called The Conjuring. And of course, it's kind of putting Lorraine back in the spotlight a little. And I noticed an interview that was put out through Yahoo News,
right,
that talked about that in all the cases that she's worked and, founded that research facility in 1952 and all this, that Amityville is the one case that not only things from that house followed them across the country, but that she will never go back there. My opinions on that are, I spent a lot of time in that house, probably not as much and as she did, obviously, but I've not had things follow me from that house. I'm not saying that type of thing doesn't happen. It can happen.
Yeah.
But I've been in places that have definitely shown a lot more activity than Amityville, and I think a lot of Amityville is stigma, and you have a town that does not want to be known that that's what they're the most famous for. I talk to the people there, and they're like, we want to be known for our beautiful beaches and our research, resources, and that it's a great town, and the only tourists they get are because of the Amityville movies, and they hate that. You don't want to be known for that.
Well, see, that's the thing. I've been like, anything that comes with Amityville, any conversations that I've had, either print or radio or in conversation, I've always put a positive spin on it because it is a beautiful boating town and there's a lot of history there, and my grandmother lived out in Patchogue. I'm very familiar with Long Island. I spent my childhood in the summers on Long Island, and we never talked about Amityville when Daddy came out with us. My parents were divorced, but we still visited Nana and Patchogue, and we drove by Amityville, and there's the little sign on the right, on the LIE, and it's like, who cares? It's a horrible crime and a murder, but my father let it go. He wasn't, like you said, the media whore with that stuff, and I think those are the people that do get all that attention, and he wasn't interested because what did he do? He moved on to the next case. Hence why he wrote so many books and screenplays and was on TV all the time, is because he kept going to help the next person. But He did have access to DeFeo not once but twice. When they moved him to the second prison, which is where he still is, not too actually far from my home. Thanks, that's great. But, it's a curse because the case won't die. It's a curse because you will have people that are trying to profit off of it, and I don't know the Warrens. Well, I know that she's, he had passed Ed, but, we know John Zaffis and we're close to him, to some respect, but point being that my father also was in this for a very long time, and he did things as a ghost hunter and researcher, not as a media whore or whatever. And I'm not saying that's what this is, but
the proof of that is that once the actual investigation into the actual murders of the Amityville house came to an end, like once the trial was over, he didn't pursue.
No. He didn't want
fame after Amityville.
He said it made him sick. And a true person who's in this field as a researcher that goes back into the 40s and 50s, like my father, who still kept going. That was his everyday job. He didn't have another job. That's what he did.
Right.
And he said to me, "I'm sick. It makes me sick. The whole thing is enough is enough." Ronald DeFeo. This whole thing is just, it's nutty. And I tried to help, and I did what I'm supposed to do, and he moved away from that. And then you go look at all the stories that come after in the 70s. He wrote 145 books. Amityville was a case of many cases that he covered. So, but yeah, so I guess we don't get our own Conjuring film. Ooh, shucks. But do you know what I mean? Like it's almost like that's where the negativity comes in, and that's where, I don't know. It's great. No, but because I think Amityville is a curse because of all the stuff. It won't go away. And I've done stuff on it too, with Shattered Hopes with Ryan Katzenbach, but it's all CSI. He's got forensics. He's got crime. He's got the autopsy report. He spoke to the people that performed this and performed that. He spoke to the cops. He got all the stuff that you would want for murder to find out who did what. There's no paranormal in it, and that's why I was drawn to that. Right. But anything gitchy around it that hadn't been involved with my father's own casework, I could care less, because he was there, we weren't. And like you said, he was in the court. They revered my father as the intellect, as respected. Anybody like other psychics that came through, or other investigators, not you, of course, but never you. You're the best, man. Peace. But no, not, but you know what I mean? Like, he had nothing to do with that. And I guess that's why he's not so popular with it, because it wasn't carried on like, kid having a fit, and you want the kid, enough already, calm down, it's over, stop with the drama. That's Amityville to me. It's almost like it's a little child that won't stop screaming out for attention. And I think because of the poor townspeople and the people that own that house today and the beautiful street that it's on, enough.
Yeah, well, it's obvious that it is largely due to the movies in the late 70s and 80s made the house popular.
Yeah.
It for its time, it was a very high grossing horror film.
Yeah.
Horror films weren't making that kind of money when Amityville came out,
Yeah.
which also made it the target of remakes and sequels and Amityville Dollhouse, and there was just so much stuff. You never saw that one?
No.
They made a movie called Amityville Dollhouse, which was about a dollhouse that was built to look like Amityville. I've never even watched it. I just read the back cover. I was like, really?
Check, please.
Yeah, it's we're running out of things to talk about with Amityville.
Wow. Did it come with fake flies?
Yeah. Well, and that's some of the stuff that if you actually take away what that was put out by the media and do what every investigator should do and do actual research on the case itself.
Yeah.
You would find out that there's plenty of evidence out there, including the Lutz family lawyer who came forward and said, we concocted this story. While there are some things that are true that did happen, obviously there was no slime oozing down the walls, and Chris validated that as well. If you've actually read the book, because I don't know that they brought it up too much in the actual movie, but if you read the book, it says that the father, he kept hearing what sounded like a marching band would come through the house, and he'd go down and there'd be nobody down there.
Right.
And talking to the family members, and this was just on my own research, just personal interviews. Kevin Lutz was in the military, and before they moved into that house, he was already on medication because he couldn't get the sounds of war and things out of his head.
Wow.
It would constantly. So that was his own mental disorder that they were trying to deal with, and that's heavily documented. And yes, he was on some pretty serious medication. It caused a lot of controversy with the family itself. Obviously some of the kids severed their relationships with the parents over this book. I mean, there was a lot of stuff. This was entirely done to make money.
Well,
the thing for people to keep in mind is that we're just because we're saying and know for a fact that these stories were made up for Hollywood doesn't mean and in no way am I or anybody else saying that actual house in Amityville could not be a cesspool for paranormal activity, because something tragic did happen there. And that's common with a lot of places that have hauntings, but not to the extent of, what Hollywood has shown you on that film.
Well, and my whole thing is, because I only know about DeFeo's story, and I've heard bits and pieces, and of course your research into with the Lutzes, is with DeFeo, he was doing drugs, and drugs make you what? Paranoid. So, he had it in for his father. That was a tumultuous relationship. Everybody who knew the case.
They were abused.
Yeah, I mean, it was a dysfunctional family to begin with. Her father, Louise, the mother, her father bought them that house. He owned a car dealership, So, I mean, they had money. They didn't need anything. It was a very cushioned life for the family. And, Butch kind of, he did drugs. He was a difficult child. If you go back, it's like with the Trayvon Martin case. The whole thing with that is, as horrible as it's a tragedy for something to end up in death, you don't ever want that for anybody. But if there's a history and a past of a child being difficult and they grow up and they're being placed from school to school and they're doing drugs and stuff, it's not exactly like they're an angel here. So when they end up in a crime scene, whether they're a victim or they've created the crime scene, there is a history there. And what happens is we forget the psychology of it. We forget the research into it. It's not all about, ghosts and demons and stuff. And so a lot of that with Butch has kind of not been really brought out to the light, so to speak. Other than, which is why I did Shattered Hopes with Ryan, because it does. And it shows the dysfunction of the family first. It's like a prequel. the house itself was moved to that plot, which is my father's research. And we all know that land could be bad, right? We can have, like in Poltergeist, you only move the headstones.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually another subject that we'll touch on in a minute, because they're remaking Poltergeist.
Get out.
Yeah. So
I miss everything.
I'm very disappointed with all the remakes, but they're remaking Poltergeist it's supposed to be released next year.
Wow.
So
nice.
But also what some people don't realize about with the Amityville and the DeFeo side of it is, yes, they were abused as children, not only physically but sexually. They, at least based on the sisters' claim. I wasn't there, so I don't know.
But here's the thing. I went and I actually got to LA. You should be proud of me. Come on now, I did it. And I did commentary for Amityville 2, The Possession, on behalf of Father, for Shout Factory Video, because when we were rolling the film and that scene comes up, and we're all in there and in that awkward moment, and you're looking and and I'm just like, nope, because it didn't happen.
Right.
It was Hollywood, and that's what Daddy said. He goes, oh, they throw it in, whatever. But the point is, in a demonic situation, in a possession, which was what my father's theory and was in the book, is it creates that environment for sexual things to happen between family, which is a big taboo. You don't do that.
No.
So that's
unless
part
you're
of
in the Ozarks.
Well, not too far from where I live. Beyond the 10 Walmarts, there could be, I don't know. But so that's part of the demon creating that horrible environment. So
right.
that was the point of my father, but it wasn't to say, oh yeah, they,
Well, they did find evidence that the sister was involved with the killings as well. But they also, and in DeFeo's defense, that was documented by court records, he at one point kept saying that there was a dark figure. He would be down in the basement. This dark figure would show up and tell him that he needed to kill his family. And at one point, there was speculation that because of the heavy influence of the drugs, that his sister actually would come down into the basement and say stuff to him, knowing that she could influence him because he was out of his mind.
Well, see, that's the thing. And so when you've got that environment, just like you said with Mr. Lutz and needing meds for his injuries and stuff, any time you hear there's drugs involved, demons, ghosts, or he said, she said, you can't accurately say what really happened, because the drugs influence the brain. You create paranoia, illusions, being disillusional, and all these things are happening. But, at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that the house itself that sat on that land wasn't a problem. It doesn't mean that the area isn't haunted, because when we split this up into the paranormal category, yes, that can be very true. And from my father's findings, it very well could have been. But when you add into the mix this murder and the drugs, you could have two things going on in the same place. You could have this haunted environment already, the family that comes in with this home that's just a house, it's just walls and a ceiling. This happens, he's on drugs, there's animosity, there's abuse, he goes and offs everybody. Oops, did I do that? And then everybody's kind of, it's all getting convoluted over the years. Yeah. Like that game Telephone. You start off, saying, oh, okay, Mike, I'll see you at 6:00, and it ends up at, I'll see you next Tuesday at 8. Like, what the hell? So,
well, the other thing is especially during the time of the investigations of this, the big thing was, if the key factor here was believed to be possession,
right,
at any point at all, how come the Catholic Church never got involved with that case?
Well, in the movie, if you see how they portrayed it, we didn't give you authority.
A priest visited the house, and that's true.
Right, it is.
It is confirmed that the priest visited the house. Yep. He did not, get choked up by flies or, get the window slammed on him. They did hear what they claimed to be a voice saying, "Get out."
Right.
However, this, if the priest witnessed this, wouldn't he go back to the church and say, okay, I was there. I saw and heard this. I personally am not going to go back in there, but I feel for the safety of this family who are members of our church.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Come down. That never happened.
No, but it's funny the line, and it's not funny, for shame, but it says "Get out." What was in that film? Too bad, baby, we can't stay.
Oh yeah. That Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy. Yeah, where about haunted houses, about why how the difference between white people and black people when they buy houses. Oh, the blood in the toilet. Well, that's peculiar. It says, but this is nice. Get out. Too bad we can't stay, baby.
We're gonna burn in hell for that one.
Well, yay! I didn't write the joke.
And then what about a scary movie with the Wayans? Didn't they do an Amityville moment where they open the door and the chandelier starts shaking and there's the voices? I thought that was an Amityville clip. I know that. It was the chandelier started shaking. But it's funny. My father said, and he wrote about that. When he walked into the house, the light above, there was a hanging kind of crystal-like light. Because back in 70s and 80s, we even had them, and even in Manhattan in the apartment, we had this grand cathedral chandelier, and it's an apartment, for Pete's sake. Like, really? But in a house, you can see that in the colonial houses. And he said he walked in with Ethel, and it shook. It was just kind of like a vibration. So there was, according to him, obviously, I wasn't there, stuff happening. It's just to what extent was it happening? It could very well be paranormal, but you can have the other mix coming in where the murders take place.
Yeah, and being that we weren't there, it's definitely questioning. If it was right as they walked in the door, when he opened the door and shut it, did a draft move it? Did a loose floorboard vibrate? I mean, but that's why we weren't there. We can't do it firsthand. You have to go by, and honestly, if he was very observant and he was, very well documented and very thorough.
Yeah.
So I have no reason to doubt that if he says that's what happened, that's what happened.
Yeah.
In the end, who knows? I mean, maybe at some point, and I know the current owners of Amityville or the house. They don't like the tourists. They don't want people coming in and out. And at some point, maybe they should actually consider letting someone come in and just dispel it. If they've been there for, I think the last time I checked, it said they lived there for like 10 years or something like that, and they haven't experienced anything at all. So let somebody go in and say, okay, look, yes, terrible things happen here. The house is clean.
Right.
Nothing's going on.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll, I don't think it'll stop people's interest in it.
No.
But I think it will, finally give people some resolve that they feel like it's still an unsolved mystery,
Well, but that's the thing. And, and there it has to be a respect factor too, because when you say that, of course, with today's generation and stuff, people automatically zoom into the people that are on TV, and those are the least ones that you want.
Right.
No offense, because unfortunately, a lot of what's out there, you and I have discussed this before, is really not what you consider credible to the extent of, maybe some people out there are, and I couldn't begin to say who, but, it's not my business, but I agree with you. But the problem is, and of course you and I both know this, is it would create the circus media unless you would have to keep it so tight under wraps that only when you reveal the evidence would have to then be like a YouTube thing privately. Then it's public. Do you know what I mean? But to show up there, you couldn't have like these big cars and trucks and vans with equipment.
Well, and you absolutely wouldn't want anybody to know when and where you were going to be there, because it would the flock of spectators that would happen would completely contaminate what you're trying to do.
Oh yeah, I mean it's and nowadays everybody is posting things. Everyone, I went to the bathroom 5 minutes ago. Yay, it's online. I mean, you can't. This is the world we live in today. So I would think the owners would even be that much more protective because we live in a social media environment.
Absolutely.
But I think. The fact that there's a film and stuff it's fine. I mean, my father has a ton of cases we can make a film off of.
Sure.
And it can happen. It doesn't mean that it can't happen. But the point is, it's like, like you said with the horror genre, which I find fascinating. I get it. It makes a really good scary movie, but again, it's Hollywood, so people have to take everything with a grain of salt. They're going to see a movie this is based off of. If I say A Case of My Father's, there's a bunch of scary cases that he covered that weren't turned into movies that are actually scarier than Amityville. And if they made that into a film, for example, a lot of it's still going to be edited for Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, and there's a very good reason for that. Nobody wants to sit in a theater and watch what we do. It's boring. It's boring.
Oh, come on, man. I'm fun.
Yeah, I'm sure you would pay $20 to go sit in a theater to watch other people sitting in the dark talking to themselves for 14 straight hours.
A lot of good jokes that happen, number one.
True.
Well, maybe. And then, what else happens?
If they can get you to be quiet for 14 hours.
Now listen, I'm very quiet. I'm not the one that starts it.
Do we need to run that Shanley Hotel footage back, or?
No. Moving on.
So, moving on, Poltergeist.
Yeah.
They actually, when they did the anniversary edition, had you speak out, do some commentary on that. What do you? I mean, obviously, Poltergeist isn't a true story in any way. It's based on a culmination of different stories that have been told and concentrated into one movie. But remake in the process, so obviously something worth bringing up, I guess.
That's what they do today. Remake.
Yeah. So what kind of influence do you think cases like the Amityville have on movies like Poltergeist? I mean, because they remade Amityville 7-8 years ago, and it's eight some years later they're remaking Poltergeist. So obviously they saw something with Amityville that says, okay, we have a target audience that's going to be the same audience. So. What do you think the link there is?
I think that I'm a big believer that these types of movies based off of factual cases tend to breed a negative playing ground for things to happen, like people on set dying, location spots, having problems and so forth. I think I'm not answering that. That's the phone. That's my phone. Ding dong.
I know it's your phone.
Oh, well, I'm glad that you know it's my phone. I didn't know it was my phone. I had to figure out it was my phone. All right, then. That's after having a cup of coffee. I think I get it marketing-wise, and I think, they might start digging up, some other classic films, but, like The Exorcist. There's the other one, So I get it. I think the influence, though, with horror is we've come out with so many other types of horror films. I don't think there's a need to revive things like Poltergeist. I get why they're doing it, because it happened like Amityville, a long time ago. That film came out, became this classic, and I don't think there's going to be too many of those, because we've already created a lot of new horror films that are very successful, and a lot of gore films and things like that, and slasher films. And you got Rob Zombie doing his thing, which is phenomenal. I love him. So I think it's just one of those niche films that were able to be brought back. I just hope that they stick to the cases again and kind of not make it too cheeseballish, because that's when a remake to me is really good, is when it's kind of just you refreshing it, but you're not going off the deep end and making it completely like cheesy.
Right.
But, I don't see it happening too much, because there's not that many cult classics like that. I mean, The Blob, that's not really horror. Well, kind of. They bring back The Blob, The Fog. They did The Fog, didn't they?
They did The Blob, too.
They did. I didn't see I know I saw The Fog. I thought that the remake wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
It was up parts.
I mean, but they're remaking so much stuff now. Like, I looked at the list. Obviously, I'm a bit upset about Michael Bay being the one remaking the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. And casting Megan Fox as April O'Neil.
I thought they didn't like each other.
Apparently they buried the hatchet or something.
Oh, that's Hollywood for you. They're always forgiven.
Hey, yeah, as long as there's enough money
in
it,
you're forgiven.
We're best friends.
What a life.
I saw they're remaking The Never-Ending Story, which is like,
Atreyu!
why?
Atreyu! Oh,
Yeah.
come on.
Why would you remake? There are just certain films that you shouldn't touch.
I agree. I agree.
I don't even think like, and not even so much as remakes, but doing like sequels and stuff to movies that didn't need sequels. Like, I don't know if I told you, there was a few years ago, a script got passed around and ended up in my hands that was for The Goonies Part 2.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And it was a prequel.
Oh.
And what it was is, you know, yes, it filled out some holes in the storyline of The Goonies, which was a fantastic movie, one of my favorite movies growing up. But the dad working at this museum, but he's in possession at his house with this highly regarded treasure map.
Right.
And in the story, you hear in the original movie when Mikey's telling the story, Chunk says, "Yeah, but if he killed all of his men, then how did somebody? Yeah, his men's.
His men's.
So how did the story or the map get out?" And he's like, "Well, one of his people must have gotten out with the map," and that's when they don't believe him. Well, in this script for the prequel, you find out that the great great grandfather of all of these kids, the Goonies, they were the original Goonies. They were shipmen. They were men who were stationed on One-Eyed Willie's pirate ship. Yeah. And the one that got out was Mikey's great 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 grandfather, and the map had been getting passed down to generation. And so I was like, that's cool and everything, but it kind of kills the story of, I mean, yeah, in a sense, it's like how all these kids met and became friends is because they didn't know it, but their great great grandfathers were part of this pirate crew, and that's what drew. So, but why bother? The Goonies is such a good story on its own. Why try explaining that or do a sequel or bring out a new? I know somebody was kicking around the idea of, now that these kids are grown up, that their children are, a new generation of the. It's just not.
No, you're right. You're totally right, and I think those are classics. But I guess maybe in marketing, the theory is once you have a fan base, you always have a fan base.
Well, I think more or less, and the reason why there are so many remakes is that a lot of films, in fact, a good chunk of films actually lose money. And so what they do is they're looking at films that made money, a formula that they already know is successful, and then they rehash it instead of taking a chance on a movie that, is original, because you don't know how it's going to do. Yeah. And that's why we're seeing so many remakes. I mean, look at this recent thing with The Lone Ranger. It's $200 million to make the film, and it's belly flopping.
Well, my whole thing is, and it's not that it's paranormal, and I wonder if Johnny Depp has any interest in this field spiritually, and if he's had experiences. I think he probably has, because he's just one of those deep dudes, But why didn't they make him the lead? Because he's the top bill, and he's the one that people are going to recognize the most. Like, why wasn't he made?
Because in the movie, the Lone Ranger is not the lead.
Oh. I knew that. I totally knew that.
Yeah, in the movie, it's Tonto is the lead, and he's telling. So
why don't they call it Tonto?
Well, because nobody's going to go see it if it's called Tonto. They won't familiarize with it.
Just talk to me about ghosts, because that's really.
Yeah, exactly. So, but when you talk about ghosts, you can't help but start getting to the talk of the entertainment part of it, because
exactly. Yeah.
That's what it has become. Before the internet and before 20,000 reality television shows, nobody cared about putting their case research out there, and honestly, nobody cared to read it. And so it was just collecting data for future investigators who wanted to go to that specific place or wanted to know the details of that case. Right. And once it became a rat race or an arms race, really, of who's collecting what and who can get it on YouTube the fastest to get their own reality television show.
Right.
It just kind of all went haywire. And yes, it brought it into the mainstream. And people tell me that all the time. Well, you know what? Well, paranormal investigating is a lot more socially accepted now. Well, it is. Yeah. But it's also becoming a laughing stock because they're creating programs for your phone for you to fake ghost photos. You know,
I saw that. Yeah.
You know, it's becoming to the point where it's almost laughable. And what's even worse is the people who are using those type of programs and actually putting it out there that this is real.
That's why I get a lot of attitude and lashback because of who I am. People just automatically assume or judge, and it's like, whoa, I grew up this way. You have no clue the stories that I have because I don't post it online every day and fill up, 30 years of my life with my father, doesn't mean it didn't happen that I don't know more than you know. I grew up with the guy. You have no clue. And what infuriates me is because of what you just said, you're already casted out. Oh, you can't be authentic. If you're authentic, then you can't be on TV. If you're authentic, we have to stay away from you because it's what's on TV and in the films that we have to follow. So therefore, you're a piece of you-know-what.
Well, because first of all...
And your research means nothing,
Those people are willing to damage their own reputations at the cost of 15 minutes and reality TV show pay. There's no integrity. It's just, we want to get on television.
And it's the same stuff, Mike. You know that, right? It's the same formula. It's the same...
Absolutely. I mean, prior to even Ghost Hunters coming out, which, during the first season... And
I like that show.
I'll tell anybody this.
I watched it.
If you watch anything from season 2 on... and compare it to the first season was shot documentary style for real. They were doing residential cases where their whole thing on television was that they were trying to help people.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree.
It stopped being that a long time ago. It started being, non-residential cases. It started being commercial locations and places that were, hey, if we put it out there to the fans that this place had activity, whether it did or didn't.
Right.
We could come back here off camera,
right,
charge $300 a ticket,
right,
and people will buy tickets to come see us and hang out at this location. You can't do that as a residential. So they quit doing residentials, and it was very obvious that it went into that direction. And unfortunately, there are people who they're in this specifically for trying to be famous or make a name for themselves. And you know what? The paranormal has such a small audience as it is when you consider the entire general population.
Oh, yeah, totally. No.
That if you're trying to get famous in the paranormal, you have picked the wrong career.
You're in the wrong field.
Yeah, you want 60,000 followers. It would be maxed out, You'd
be better off like this dude.
Yeah, pretty much.
But listen, you're right, and I know, and I know people don't want to hear it for those that watch the stuff and listen. Like we just said, I watched the first season of GH. I watched In Search of, and my father was on there, not because he was on there, because I myself gravitated towards the unknown. And I grew up the way I grew up, So it's not a question of, oh, so-and-so's there, so therefore it's okay or not okay. I've never, I just think that what happens is you get the cookie cutter formats that keep going and going. And when you put somebody out there, they have a fan base already. It's done. Right. So when you see that one person out there on TV, all of a sudden they're known, and then you're the best thing since sliced bread. It's just that's what media does. It's called marketing. It has nothing to do with integrity of a person. I think the people that are, doing it the right way, it takes longer for them because they are sticking to their guns and their values and morals. And it doesn't mean opportunities don't come by. You and I can list a whole bunch via email of opportunities that we both were like, no. Because of where it would end up, and because it's that one time of, well, it could go somewhere, but look at what it'll do to the whole point of why we're here. You're supposed to stand your ground in life, and you're supposed to stick to your guns. You're not supposed to be kind of like, well, today I'm a Republican, tomorrow I'm a Democrat. that's what this field makes me feel like. And it's like, well, I'm going to be hated because I'm a one woman band, but I'm a good one woman band, and I know what I'm talking about, and I have a group that gets that. I'm going to stick to that and move forward with it, because that it's just, it doesn't feel right to go the other way. Just like you don't compromise your integrity for your casework and going and even online stating the obvious. You get a ton of support, Mike. You do, so it obviously sticking to your guns is the right thing to do. There is a support for that.
It is. It's just, that's not what they want in front of television. And it's very obvious. And without naming the particular shows, I will say that, I have yet to step onto a production set for those reality shows and there not be a script. And they can tell you all day long that it's not scripted and this, but it is. Because the bottom line is, in order to get approval from the network, and you know this as well as I do, they have to turn in a script that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the network has to decide, is this something that we believe the audience would enjoy?
Right.
And that script has to be approved before they'll let you even go to the location and film. And there have been times where we've showed up for filming for a non-scripted reality TV show, and there be a script, and not just like a guideline, but what the outcome was going to be. And the reason I got upset was because I'm reading, first of all, they didn't tell me there was a script, because what they were going to do was cut and edit around me. Mm-hmm. Everybody else had a script. They wanted me to say stuff. And then, of course, they edit it to make you say whatever they want you to say, or however they want you to say.
Sure, yeah, I get, yeah.
And then, but I found the script by accident by being left in a room alone. And when I started flipping through it and realized it was a script for the episode that we haven't even shot yet, and they have the outcome of what it was going to be, I was like, well, they're supposed to run this experiment, and this experiment, and they haven't run them yet. I was in town 2 days before the cast got there, so I know they haven't run the experiment.
Right.
So how do you have the outcome already? So what most people don't know is that particular show that I made that appearance on, since I knew the questions and stuff that they were going to ask, I was replying knowing their answers and making it as difficult for them to be able to edit it any other way as possible. The first one that we did, and pretty much anybody can go do my ghost story.
Yeah, we talked about that.
My ghost story, it was a good experience. It was fun going to California. But what they do is they tell you, we're going to let you tell this in your own words. And they do to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. But what they did to Charlie and I was, prior to telling the actual story, they told us they had some questions that they wanted to ask to get us comfortable in front of the camera and all this. So they were asking like these random kind of off the wall questions that had nothing to do with, it was basically what they called settling in questions.
Right.
But what it was is so that as we told our story, if it wasn't saying what they wanted it to say, they've asked us these questions that we've given short, simple answers to, that they can go back in and edit into what we're talking about to make it sound like we were talking about something completely different. They literally made me say a sentence that I never said, because they edited 3 different sentences down to one sentence on completely different subjects. And I remember when the trailer ran for the beginning of season 3, I was in the trailer. And in the trailer, they had me saying something, but cut away from me halfway through, because my mouth wouldn't have matched what came out next, because they made me say something that I didn't say. Right. And they took stuff out of context, where they would ask me. A good example was, we had somebody that caught something interesting on video. And reviewing it on site, I'm looking at it on a screen about this big. And my exact phrase was, I did not want to make a big deal about it until we could get it off of this little screen and I could see it full size
Right.
before we go running around telling people that we caught a ghost on camera.
Right.
You know, the only part of that sentence they used, we caught a ghost on camera.
No, I get. Well, let me ask you this, because here's the thing. My father did it successfully with In Search of and other TV programs and shows without any of this, and he was just as fascinating, and people tuned in, and he had millions of fans. How is it that we can't do that? Why can't we go back to old school as a documentary style and do our research that way? It still is entertaining, especially being that we're the younger generation, like, duh. I mean, come on, really? Give us a little bit more credit than,
I mean, I do have the Zach Bagans physique that could get us through a television show. No, yeah. I'm totally not lying about that.
Oh, Pershaw.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Totally. I don't know. I think it's because deep down, people are searching for answers and searching for the truth, but they're not searching for it on television. And
that's why I love writing, Mike. Though that's what the whole point is when you do radio and you write, you pray to God that people actually still read in this day and age. When you write and you get it out and you explain a situation, or somebody asks you a question via email, I get a lot of the emails. I'll take the time and I'll answer them as to what they've experienced. What does it mean? Because I know what it means. They don't. So that's part of our job, is to explain to them. It has nothing to do with TV. It's never been about that. It's always been about communication. Duh. I mean, hence the whole point about, communicating with the other side. You're not, it's not like we were born with the camera stuck to our butt and saying, okay, the minute you hear a dead person, turn on the camera, because that's what we do.
Yeah. I mean, it's like trying to catch, say you have a hummingbird that comes into your yard every day. And
I do.
You want to, you do. So you want to catch it on camera.
Yeah.
Well, unless you know exactly what time that hummingbird is coming, you're going to have to set up the camera and let it record for a few hours. And then at some point, hope that you catch it. Maybe he doesn't come that day, or maybe he doesn't come the next day.
Oh, I have a story for you about that, by the way. My mother-in-law's husband works for Time Warner in Jersey, and one of their buildings is haunted. And nobody has been there to investigate. Of course, they know who my father was, and so my stepfather explained who I was. They would be willing to let us come in, and do a case. But I get a lot of these. I'm just telling you, through my family, through family members. Places they work that are haunted, things that are happening. Nobody's gone there because they're not interested in the TV shows. They're interested in finding out why things are being moved around and why they hear sounds. And a lot of the workers, there's a lot of the guys that work there for the plant are Spanish. They don't speak English. They come in there like the night shift. They are petrified to go in this one part of the plant in Jersey. So I just got this story last week, and I'm thinking, oh my God, right there, bam, that's a Hans Holzer thing. You would get the psychic, you would get the equipment you use, and you make the time and schedule a meeting to go down there several times, and you set up and you do your investigation, and then you write about it.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Not just a one night, in and out.
No.
And, you can't draw a conclusion that way. Things have gotten bogged down and so diluted with the television shows that it has hurt people who have done this for a long time and people who have credibility in the field.
Well, we're the idiots now. How did that happen? Why did the tables turn that we're the idiots? I don't get that, what happened?
Because, that people are gullible and they believe a lot of what they see on TV.
Look, I'm not knocking it. You and I both have to eat. Everybody has to eat. I get it. It's also a paycheck, and it's an ability. Listen, if we had that opportunity, I would go and then finally try to write that bestseller book, myself, no ghostwriter, not get that bestseller book, because then I would have the attention needed to have it sold, because that's where I go back to what we just talked about, marketing.
Right.
I would go and I would give more money to the charities and the organizations that we are helping and that I can't help financially, that I want to help, like Wounded Warriors, to the animal rescues, to children's like autism and diabetes. So you and I, that's kind of where we're the type of people that do that. But when you don't have that platform, that's where I see the good in that too, is you're able to get your name out there. You can go and do more good with the universe kind of helping you become more known for that. But we get garbled up into this little ball saying, oh, you just want this, you want that, and you want this.
Well, I mean,
it's not true.
There's a ton of obstacles that, without being on television, that you have to overcome. And you particular, and we've talked about this so many times.
Cursed, man.
We've gone through every piece of drama between everybody we can with this. But being a female,
right, in
the paranormal field, for some, it's just what they look like. You know, that you can get on a television show without an ounce of paranormal knowledge, just if you are decent looking. Others, it's like, without naming names, because there's old things that just don't want to get brought up. But when you and I first started working together, look at the people and who they were that came in at that time and did not like the attention that you were getting from me and vice versa, and would email you and email me and, you know, basically try to sabotage what we had working together, not knowing what our past and history was.
But that right there is exactly what people do. And those are the types of people where your circle becomes really small, because it's like, listen, with the access to the internet and email today, people just come at you and say, you know, all these crazy things that have no validation, just because of what they think they might know or what they think they might see, when it's not true, or they have no proof. They just go off on you because they're either jealous or intimidated. And that was my first lesson years ago in this field of dealing with it in a way that my father never had to deal with it. And I said, this doesn't feel right to me. This is, if I meet you and you're a colleague and we're doing casework, that's what it's supposed to be. Not all these outside influences coming in and biting you and me and anybody else and creating what you call like the paranormal drama. It's like, why does that even exist? This is not how I grew up with my father. I refuse to go there. I don't want it.
Because it's become competition, and it literally has become a competition for who's got the best evidence, who's got the proper methods, who's going to get the next television show. You know, I get people. There'll be people that are like, okay, well, you know, you say you've been in the paranormal for this long, but how come none of your stuff was published to the internet or anything prior to 2005 or And I say, okay, well, let me tell you two things. One, blame Alexandra Holzer for that, because she's the one that made me sign up for MySpace and Facebook for you to even know who I am.
My brother-in-law made me do it, so I'm blaming him. Blame me.
You emailed me and said, there's this thing called MySpace, and you should sign up for it you can start getting your stuff out there. And then when Facebook came out, you're like, I'm leaving MySpace. You should sign up for Facebook. And but prior to that, and that's reason number one. Yeah. You wouldn't even know that I was doing this if she hadn't told me to get on MySpace and Facebook.
See, it's always Holzer's fault.
All right. Yeah, but number two was number two. Whenever we did our investigations, there was no reason to put it on the internet. No. We weren't doing it for anybody else. We were doing it for two reasons and two reasons only.
Yes.
One was for whoever called us to come out and do the investigation, to let them know what we found.
Right.
And the second reason was that if they still experienced stuff after that and wanted to bring in a second opinion, that this person could come in and have the stuff that we turned into them as a reference point. That's all there was to it. Now, that's on the outside. I mean, obviously, the whole driving reason is getting into, you know, finding personal answers and stuff like that. But there was no reason for me to post it to YouTube for the world to see, because it didn't. What does it matter to the world? But now it's like that's expected. And that's fine, because I'm all for a peer review.
But you did that. You started on Facebook. You started to do that, and you did it with an introduction like this big, because you were hoping that people would be reading first and foremost before clicking play.
And they got so offended.
Yeah.
Anytime when somebody would post something and you tell them, you know, especially people who were just getting started in it, the armchair ghost hunters that saw it on Wednesday night and
started
a team Friday afternoon.
Right. With the bullet points, HOLZER.
Yeah. And, one of the big SWAT vests with everything all over it. But the thing is like, they were making mistakes that we've been trying to clear up for the last 10, 15 years. Camera malfunctions, dust, moisture, bugs, whatever. But
you're right. All that happens. So.
And when they're new to it and they get that, because I every once in a while, if I go to a new town, I'll take their local ghost tour, even if I already know the truth behind them, because 90% of them end with, well, that's just a portion. Mm-hmm. And if you'll step over to our gift shop, you can buy the book that tells the entire story of each one of these that we showed you today.
And for an extra $9.99, we'll throw in the ghost.
That's right. So those ghost tours are usually just a half-hour walking book sale.
Yeah. I got it.
And so I'll take them just to see what it is these people say to the people on the ghost tours. And as people are taking these photos outside the buildings and they get a piece of pollen or something in front of the lens, they're like, "Ooh, I caught something." And the person giving the ghost tour will go over there and be like, "Yes, that's an orb. That's a spirit. And you caught. And I'm sitting here like, that's just not, it's entertaining and they feel like they caught something. But the problem it poses for me is, who do you think gets sent that photo 2 weeks from now wanting an analysis of it? And then when I give it to them, they get aggravated and upset and tell me that, well, so-and-so told me this, and well, I'm telling you that I've worked in film for a long time. I've worked with every type of camera, from Polaroid to film to SLR to digital SLR. I've seen every type of camera blur, whatever is out there, I've pretty much seen.
Yeah.
And if it looks enough like it, then I can't, in good faith, say, yes, that's what it is and not throw it out. If it looks like dust and you don't have enough other stuff behind it to prove to me that it's not dust, it looks enough like dust that I can throw it away.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they get so offended
mm-hmm.
when you tell them that it might not be anything, that you get called, well, you're just not a believer and you're just a skeptic. And look, anybody that knows me, they know that I'm very verbal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any problem putting out there what I think about a photo or a video.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But at no point have I ever said that I'm not a believer. If
right.
I wasn't a believer, I wouldn't be out there. I mean, I've seen and caught and heard things that I probably shouldn't have, or that shouldn't have been there. Definitely seen it. But the problem is you're bringing me the stuff that I've already said, I don't care. Photos do nothing for me anymore. There's too many ways to fake them. I wasn't there when you took them. You'll tell me that it's not your breath. If it was 60 degrees outside, you'll tell me it wasn't your breath and that it was 80 degrees outside. Or that you're not a smoker, but it's not cigarette smoke.
It is harder, but that's your point, though. Like back in my father's day, when they took photography, it was completely different. I mean, and he lists in his book the type of Polaroids, the Kodak film, the light exposure, the time of day. That's what you're supposed to do. Nowadays, you're right. You have 10 more things on your plate to worry about when you are analyzing something. So it's going to take you that much longer to get to the conclusion, if there is one, because the thing that people have to understand, there's not always going to be a conclusion. You might just have to put it in the unknown category.
Right.
Do you know what? Quickly, to switch topics.
Sure.
I'm going to let you go soon. UFOs.
Ah.
Do you know what I have? What I found?
What?
I am still going through Dad's stuff, by the way. This is Betty Hill, a 603 area code in New Hampshire. And this is her testimonial on the
cassette, yeah.
Right, the Betty a cassette. What is that?
You have to explain that, because if you hold that up, most people aren't going to know what that is. They don't exist anymore.
Right. Well, this is this is the Betty and Barney Hill cassette tape.
And this is the tool you use to fix them when
right in the middle. Well, I do this, man.
You just stick the finger in there. Right?
Boy, we've just aged ourselves. This is, my father had it typed on one of those things,
Oh, yeah, label maker.
This is Betty and Barney Hill, but this is Betty Hill because he had passed. This is her testimony to my father with the UFO abduction. That was that famous case that everybody learned about. So I'm actually going to be transcribing this at some point. I have to find a tape recorder.
Oh, hold on, wait.
Oh, what? See, we're old school. This is you can't get this today. Everything is too advanced and digitized. We're doing it old school. What are you doing over there?
Actually, you don't.
You have. Is that the one my father had?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Oh, even better. But you saw this one already. But I brought this to the hotel. Wait a minute. Yeah.
That's the same. See it?
Yeah, but mine's broken because it's Daddy's.
This one's not. This one works.
Does it really? Look at the old mic.
Yeah, I think I've got the mic too. And you know what? Believe it or not, it has
Sony.
Outstanding sound quality.
I believe. Yes, I believe it's a Sony. This is a Sony. The mic is a Sony.
Yeah.
This is a Sony. Did you get the Sony one? It says tape recorder TC100.
Yeah, this is the
from.
This is the TC110A.
Okay,
Sony.
That's close. This is the 100. See, this is Look at that. Hopefully we've taught some people today. I know it's a long interview, but
and the
so important. So
original microphone and plug that came with it.
Let me see. Yeah.
As well as the leather straps and that say Sony on them, and the carrying case.
Nice.
So yeah,
see?
Got it all. Do you need me to mail it to you so you can transcribe that tape?
No, you bought that. I can't. It's going to cost you like $80 to mail that thing. Look at that.
You remember where I got this from, right?
eBay?
No.
Amazon?
No. Remember when I contacted you that somebody was selling a bunch of your father's stuff online?
Oh, that's where you got it?
Yeah.
Oh.
I told you that's why I bought it, so that nobody else
would have it. Well, that figures.
And then it was here if you ever needed it. So.
Yeah, that's another thing too. It's not like I'm doing that kind of stuff too. But I think thank you.
You can edit that part out if you want.
I don't know how to edit. Should I? Well,
it's up to you. I just don't want you're the person who sold it.
I don't even know who did. I kind of stay away from all of that. Like my father's stuff is everywhere. Like not everywhere, but I have a lot of his things. But to me, I don't care. He's gone. It's all materialistic anyway. But well,
if you need it, I'll mail it to you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, how cool. But I think this was a good interview for the two of us, and I think not to offend anybody, we brought up some people, and I honestly, you and I don't know anybody well enough to even say anything seriously about them. We're just trying to make light of when you are out there publicly. Unfortunately, we do use one another as examples, and you and I are no stranger to being used as an example, and it's certainly not in a positive light. You and I have been put in a negative way many a times as well. So I kind of feel like if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. If you're going to put yourself out there, you're going to have people that either will love you or hate you.
And you got to have thick skin. I'm always prepared. I think of it like the famous line Bill Murray said in Ghostbusters. I don't have to take this abuse from you. I've got thousands of people dying to abuse
me. Woo. I agree. That is the mantra for us. But I think, you and I have stuff always cooking, and I think it's always for the right reasons. And as long as you have the right people that follow and believe in your work and what you're doing, that's all you need. The naysayers and the people that are ready to put you down, it's sad because we're not doing that. If we have opinions is one thing. If we feel, well, so-and-so is not correct and this is why, that's an opinion. But you have to say, but I respect what they're saying. I just don't agree.
No, I'm more. I'm on the fence with it because I think that the more people that are interested, granted, most of them won't stick, but at least maybe a few of the people who got interested will actually continue to do it when it's not a popular thing, and it'll give the field some good researchers. And
there's a lot of good ones out there today. Absolutely. It's not like, there's a lot of great people out there trying to advance the field,
There definitely is. And I know way, shape, or form. Just like we said, there's no right or wrong way to do it. So no way, shape, or form are we saying we're better than anybody else. Or
Well, I know I am.
I mean, we're different.
So I'm totally like the best.
Camera ready.
Camera ready, man.
So, but no, everybody has different ways, and is going to do what works best for them. It's the same as cooking. Everybody's got their own recipe. It doesn't mean that anybody's apple pie it's still apple pie. It just might taste a little different.
Yeah, but if you add the ice cream, it's a la mode. It tastes much better, though. I'm just saying, putting it out there. Maybe no.
So, I appreciate you calling me the ice cream.
You're the cheese. Forget the ice cream. You're like the cheese.
That's for sure.
But
stinky cheese.
You're stinky cheese. But we have nothing but love for one another and for the field and all our colleagues around us that we still, over the years, keep in touch with. That we don't live in the same states, but we all, we'll talk about, casework. We'll talk about the field. We always, reconnect. And that's kind of like what my father did. He had 50 plus years of people coming in and out of his life for all different reasons with stuff. So I think that's the way to be in life. I don't feel like this competitive and drama, it's so disgusting. It makes you feel icky. I mean, I can't even. So you're right when you say all that stuff, and
Yeah, I stay away from it. I mean, but at the same time, there is a system of checks and balances, and they're absolutely, and I won't go too far into this because, like you said, we want to cut this at some point, but. That whole paranormal unity thing, it's never going to happen. And honestly, people that chase that, it's a pipe dream. There's no unity anywhere in any field. There's no unity at McDonald's, much less at in the paranormal field.
There's a riot when they forget the kids' toys.
And in any field where you have so many overlapping things between science, religion, faith, that kind of stuff, nobody's ever going to completely agree. And the sooner you can accept that and say, you know what, we don't have to be unified.
No.
If we're unified, there's a problem. Because that means everybody is thinking the exact same thing, and no progression will be made.
And that's the mistake that I made when we first talked with when we filmed our first interview session. We both were sold on that, thinking, okay, well, if we try to promote unity, but you're right, in anything in life, there's too many negatives with it. It's too much. You can't. It's not possible.
I just say, forget the unity and just. Do your thing, coexist.
And don't worry about what others are doing. Worry about yourself. It's a lesson to learn.
Yeah, because nothing that anybody else does is going to affect what you do unless you let it.
Exactly.
So as long as you're going out and doing your research and they're going off doing theirs, even if you don't think theirs is the right way and they don't think yours is the right way, who cares? It doesn't affect what you do at the end of the day. It doesn't change your life a bit.
And you have to live your life. You have your own life. And I think that's too, why I try to stay off of the social media. We only plug stuff for work. And sometimes we'll engage with people because you don't want to be mean. And also you're there to help. So you really do have to engage with people. That's the whole point. There's a lot of people that became well known and don't even talk to anybody on the social sites. That, you know what I mean? And it's really very pretentious. And, my father, who was famous at a certain point, had millions of people. And you know what? I have stacks of letters to prove that he wrote people back. And I mean, we're talking handwritten and his Smith Corona typewriter. Powder blue, baby. So don't tell me. And he was very busy, not for nothing. So
even being as busy as he was, he would return phone calls.
Always. My father was constant. He loved to interact with people. Hence the point, communication. How do you not learn?
The Mako case, when we did the Mako lie to North Carolina, he was easy to get a hold of and get his feedback on
because he was
his
accessible.
research.
My father did not live. He didn't have an agent. He had a literary agent. He didn't have a manager. He didn't have a publicist. He did everything naturally because he knew what he was doing. He didn't need anybody to tell him. He knew. And it's that's being so non-pretentious. Was he difficult? Was he rude? Yeah. But that being said, he was good at what he did, and I feel the same way in my life path as you do for your life path. And I think that's exactly the point. It's just
right.
That's all you need. So
I issue the challenge to, any network television show or anybody that might watch it.
they hate us.
Seriously, send Alex and I to any one location that has previously been investigated.
Hawaii?
Sure, Hawaii.
No, too far.
Any location that has previously been investigated by her father, and let us do a follow-up and do it our way. And I can guarantee you it'll have a longer, it might not have as many viewers, but it'll definitely have better long-term dedicated viewers, because you'd be doing something that actually is something more than just trying to entertain a television audience.
And not for nothing, we're very entertaining. So you kind of like can't lose anyway, because it's almost like people, like my father worked well with a lot of people, and there's moments and there's pockets of times where it's really funny, because I've seen his footage and it's really funny. And, so you don't even mean to be, but when you're in that environment, you're emotional, you're feeling things, you're scared, you're excited, you're happy, you're sad, you're in the moment, you're intelligent. All these emotions, you can't help but capture that on film anyway.
Well, you think about the places that you and I have investigated together, and
there's always something happening.
90% of the footage is outtakes.
It is. It's funny. They're the best ones, though.
Because the Shanley and the Stanley Hotel, but Moundsville Prison. Moundsville Prison.
That was by far the best, because not only did Daddy come through and we have all that recorded, how much more could people even witness something like that nobody can say or do? And that's why there's so much difficultness around that, because it's not a thing that you can replicate.
And people like seeing me throw myself into the path of danger when they're like,
"Come at me!
Go ahead, I'm right here.
That was funny. All the laser lights are all over you. You're in this big green grid. I was waiting for Slimer to come by. It was the funniest thing. And my feet are killing me. We're in this just like dank room. Dead bugs. It's gross. It's so gross. It's so gross there. Don't make me go back. So gross.
I would like to go back at some point, but
that's a pain to get there. First, you got to get off the plane. Then you got to take an hour's drive just to get to the hotel, and then you got to get from the hotel to the prison, which is like another 20-minute drive. I almost puked every other 5 minutes.
It's a hard place getting in and out of it, but all the good ones are. If they were that close to the airport, I mean, it wouldn't be worth going to.
Yes, right? But this is Alex you're talking about. Everything has to be within 10 miles.
That's true. Well, then you get started on that New York Public Library.
Yeah, well, we have to get to Dan Aykroyd first.
Yeah, well, we're like that close to that. So. Hey, you know what? When we were doing the event in Wilmington with Ernie Hudson, Dan was in town.
You're kidding.
And we tried as hard as we could to put it out there that not only were we doing this convention that Ernie was there, we were kind of using Ernie as bait to try to draw. He was in town for filming a movie called Tammy with Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah.
And he started, I don't know if he ever found out that our convention was going on or not. We had the Ghostbuster car down there. We had everything trying to draw him down there. But he did make appearances at the different liquor stores around town, autographing his vodka stuff. So, but it was this close. Missed it by that much. So, really stated ourselves.
Listen, we are old school. We have nothing to do with what's out there right now, because the whole point is to not be what you're not, and to be something that was and still is. So that's all good. I'm still 20, man. Come on now. 20? Yeah? I don't like you anymore. You're not my friend.
15? 16? Yeah.
Meh.
Yeah, Actually, I had to shave. I noticed my first patch of gray hair growing in my beard yesterday, and I'm like, really? At 22, I'm getting gray hair?
It's the ghosts, though. They gray you. They age you. Come on. You go into a room, one comes by, you're 10 years older already.
Yeah, and I'm not really 22 either. So.
No, at least 26. God, don't lie.
All right, so fine. 26.
But at least 26. But I like your message. I think that's cool. you know, and it's honest. And, you know, in today's day and age, honesty is so needed. That good for us for at least being honest and open, and that we don't really care what people think, because I think we're really good at what we do. I don't say that we're experts. I think that we're very intelligent and that we've been through enough in our life, and that we're not 20. I'm double that. So you're still a babe, but I'm double that, and I've gone through enough. You're not even any in my range. You're not in the 40-something range.
No, I'm.
Shut up. Sit down.
I'm catching up though.
You're nowhere near it. You're fine. You're like
No,
a little dough.
I'm not far off.
Yeah. Well, I'm old, but I think it's a good. This is why the haunted environment has to be 10 miles from the airport. Now you understand. You see?
Because the width of the walker won't fit onto the plane.
You know, I'd curse, but I don't want to do that because then this wouldn't upload properly. So
it probably won't anyway. How long is it now?
It's a little. I don't know. Do you want? Should I send it to you? Will it take I can't send it via email unless I compress it.
It'll be a large file.
Should I zip it or compress it like with?
You'll be fine. Just
stuff it.
It's better not to edit it at all. Let it be raw. It's
okay. So we're not editing this.
I haven't said anything that I regret, so.
Okay. Well, I mean, you know, yeah, no, I know. I always tend to, I say I don't worry, but then I worry because that's just, you know, I'm a woman. I know it's a bad trait, but all right. Well, I'll stop it and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
All right. I'll talk to you later.